Hello, chess fans. I'm sure some of you out there are looking for some new traps, some new tricks, especially for like blitz games and stuff like that. And I found one such trick within the Budapest defense that I wanted to share today. It begins with 1 d4, 2 knight to f6, c4, and then e5. And typically white here will play pawn takes pawn, and the knight will go out to g4. So that's the typical starting position of this opening. And then white will then have the choice of maybe bishop to f4, knight to f3, queen up to d5 or d4, guard the pawn, attack the knight, different ideas, right? But today I want to show you something that is a little bit off the beaten path, but may happen in like a blitz game like I was saying, or maybe even a tournament game where your opponent's trying to avoid main lines. And you'll have a fun little surprise if you see this move. So let's go back a little bit, and we'll see the move knight b to d2. A little bit different than the other variations I was showing you. And one of the first things I want to point out is that this move has already, on move 2, changed the game quite a bit. e3 is only protected by, well, the pawn on f2, right? You got the f2 pawn and that's it. So this changes things a lot in the opening, and the moves that you're about to see would not be possible if that knight hadn't come into b2. And it's not to say that that move itself is wrong, it's just that the play that's about to follow shows the strength of weakening of that weakening move by white. So black didn't really force that, obviously, but now with the next move e5, pawn takes, knight to g4, black has already in a way set up a trap, set up an opportunity for white to go horribly wrong in a way that I feel actually costs white the game. So let's show you that mistake, h3. And how many times in a game of chess have you maybe made a move like this and thought nothing of it? Just pawn threatens knight, and most of you out there that haven't seen this before are expecting knight takes pawn immediately. No big deal. Just knight moves for the third time in the opening. You're perfectly happy to see that knight continue to move. And maybe you were thinking that you'd follow that move up after the knight captures with like knight to f3, offering the exchange of one of your knights you've moved once for a knight that would move 4 times if it was to exchange with your knight. And you feel like, okay, that should be some kind of opening advantage, right? Well, surprise, surprise. The knight goes to e3. It threatens your queen. At the same time, the only way to capture it is that f2 pawn, like I mentioned. So pawn takes. The computer throws out the hint there is queen checks will be mate, because pawn up, checkmate. Horrible surprise. Don't fall for it. Don't go into it. Avoid that line, right? Lots of ways to avoid it. One way to avoid it is after the knight goes to g4, make any other move, right? h3, not good. I shouldn't say any other. Wouldn't you see the other one? The other horrible move white could make here? And this one I think is horrible in a lot of openings, so I wouldn't be as surprised by this move being bad. h3 is a bit more of a surprise, but f3, of course, we've seen maybe several openings where f3 causes problems. So the knight then can come into e3, and again, the queen is just lost. So there's no longer the checkmate idea. The pawn will be able to guard with the other pawn supporting it, but you are losing your queen on move 4. So let's go back now. Going to a more typical line, knight to f6, c4, and then e5. There's also another trick or opening mistake that you can fall into in this line that I kind of wanted to show you. And that's the idea of guarding with the f2 pawn. So you play f4. And when you play f4, you've already created for yourself a bit of trouble, as bishop to c5 will allow the knight and the bishop to pile up on the f2 square, which is very uncomfortable. You have to make a move like e3. And now look what you've done to your bishops. You have a pawn on c4 and you have a pawn on e3, and both of them are hindering your bishop's movement. This is not typical or ideal development for white. Black's pieces are being developed, white's pawns are being developed. You do control, or I shouldn't say control, you occupy the center as white, right? You've got a lot of central presence, but black has the active pieces. And after a move here like d6, just with the bishop guarding the knight, applying a little bit of pressure back on the center, black has a very comfortable game. In white's game, I can almost guarantee this isn't the type of position you're hoping to start out playing as the game began. So just something to be aware of. And then, of course, I should give you my recommendations, right? So when I encounter this position, I like to make the move knight to f3, which immediately takes away the idea of e5 and is a perfectly great way to play the opening. You can also, if you actually want to allow the opening, with c4 and then e5 and pawn takes and knight out, I would recommend making a move here like knight to c3, just allowing black to recapture that pawn, and then making moves like e3 and F4 later on to gain time as you make the knight move, and you cover up that diagonal right away. So I realize this kind of looks similar to the one I told you shouldn't do, but the difference is the knight's getting kicked away. Like it's not you're not playing F4 at a time that doesn't give tempo, because we're getting the knight to move with our pawn moving to F4 instead. Hope you've enjoyed this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you